I called it the reboot. That's how she pitched it to me, like a software update for our marriage. Laura had come home one evening in early spring, cheeks flushed from the cool air, her eyes darting like she was scared I might say no before she even asked. "I think we need a reset," she'd said, dropping her gym bag near the door. That bag would later become my first clue. "I found this program," she went on, "a total mind and body reboot. Nutrition, fitness, mental clarity. 6 weeks. It might help us. Help me." We were still reeling from the miscarriage. The silence between us had grown roots. The nights were longer, colder. So I nodded. "Sure. Reset sounds good." The gym was called Elevation. Slick branding, matte black windows, minimalist logo. Everything about it screamed money, which made sense since the membership fees could have funded a used Honda. But Laura insisted it was worth it, said she'd already met with her trainer, a guy named Trent. "He's certified in like 10 things," she said, eyes lighting up. "Nutrition, biomechanics, even meditation. And he used to play pro baseball." That should have been my second clue. Trent. Even his name sounded like a red flag. At first, I was just glad to see Laura moving again. She got up early, prepped smoothies, came home glowing from workouts. It was the happiest I'd seen her in months. And I wanted to believe it was all part of the healing. That maybe this gym, this trainer, this reboot would lead us back to each other. She started wearing crop tops again. Not for me, just in general. That was the third clue. Then came the late sessions. "Trent says I've got great mobility potential, so we're doing one-on-one flexibility work now. After hours," she told me one night, not even meeting my eyes. Her sports bra was still damp. "Helps with recovery." She said it like a rehearsed line. I wanted to believe her. I needed to. But around week 4, I noticed her laugh changed. It wasn't the belly laugh I'd fallen in love with, the one that came from somewhere real. It was quieter, measured. The kind of laugh you use when you're trying to impress someone, not love them. I only heard it when she was texting, and she was always texting. Then one night, while I was cooking dinner, she left her phone on the counter. The screen lit up. Trent. A text. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Still sore." There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. That text was mine. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I just stared at the message, then at the door where she'd just left to grab something from Whole Foods. I let the chicken burn. I sat there at the kitchen island, the overhead light buzzing softly, while the reality settled in like a cold front. She was sleeping with her trainer, while I was working overtime to keep our mortgage paid and pretending things were okay. I didn't confront her that night, or the next. I needed more. Proof. Patterns. I became a shadow in my own home, watching, listening. She didn't even notice. Her phone was her lifeline to Trent, to their world. She laughed more when she texted than she did when she looked at me. And then I made a decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't be the wounded husband clinging to a woman who already left him in every way that mattered. I would take control. I started with small things. Passwords. Bank statements. I found out she was withdrawing cash regularly, always in small amounts, always late at night. My name wasn't on the new credit card she'd opened. She'd been preparing for this to blow up. So I gave her no explosion, just silence. That seemed to unnerve her more than anything. She'd glance at me over dinner, watching for some flicker of suspicion. But I was ice, just like she'd become. Only I wasn't planning a future with someone else. I was planning something better, something deeper. I went to Elevation, not to work out, just to watch. Trent was exactly what I pictured. Tan, tall, smug in a way that passed for charm to most women. He smiled too easily, touched too much. I watched him guide a woman's form during squats, his hand just a little too low on her back. I saw how Laura wasn't special. She was just the latest. And that gave me what I needed. Leverage. I signed up for a trial week. Got paired with a different trainer. I watched. I listened. And eventually I followed. Laura thought she was careful, that I was oblivious. But I knew the rhythm of her steps better than she did. The night I trailed her to that rented condo, near the river, I didn't bring a camera. Didn't need to. Some things burn into your brain, whether you want them to or not. I watched the door open. Watched Trent's hand pull her inside. Watched the light flip off 30 seconds later. And then I walked away, my jaw clenched, my mind racing. Not with grief. but with possibilities. You ever notice how betrayal makes everything around you quieter? Like the air gets thicker, the walls close in. Even your own footsteps start sounding foreign. That's how it was for me the morning after I followed her to the riverfront condo. I woke up in our bed alone. Laura hadn't come home. Her side was still perfectly made. Sheets tucked, pillows untouched. The only sign she'd ever been there was the faint perfume that still lingered in the fabric. Sweet, synthetic, like someone trying too hard to smell like innocence. I didn't rage. Didn't throw her stuff into the yard. That's what she would have expected. No, I made coffee. Read the news. Even kissed her on the cheek when she finally walked through the door around 8 a.m., acting like she'd just taken a sunrise jog. She didn't flinch. That was the most offensive part. How comfortable she was in the lie. But I was already in motion. I call it the isolation protocol. First phase in what was now a personal war. Cut her off from comfort, control, from any illusion that she had the upper hand. That morning, I changed every password. Wi-Fi, streaming accounts, the Nest thermostat. She tried to log in that night and couldn't. Weird, she muttered. Wi-Fi's down again. I shrugged. Must be the router. I'll take a look after work. I didn't. She spent the rest of the night scrolling data-free on her phone. Her perfect Instagram algorithm starved of its dopamine. Small wins. But I didn't stop there. I rerouted the shared Amazon account to a new address. Blocked her favorite boutiques. Froze the credit card we used for groceries. Little inconveniences, but ones that poked at her carefully curated lifestyle like a pebble in her designer-running shoe. She asked questions, but not the right ones. That's when I realized she was scared, not of getting caught, but of being seen. That's why she hadn't confessed. Because people like her, people like Trent, they only exist in illusions, in highlight reels. The moment you hold up a mirror, the whole act falls apart. So I gave her a mirror. On Thursday, I left a post-it note on her car windshield at the gym. I know, a friend. That night, she came home early. No gym bag, no smug smile. Her voice was soft when she spoke. Have you noticed anything weird lately? Like someone following you? I looked up from my book, let my brow furrow just enough to sell concern. What? No. What? She hesitated. It's probably nothing. Just a feeling. Good. Let the paranoia bloom. By week's end, I'd collected more than enough. Photos, audio, even managed to recover a few texts off our old iCloud sync. One she clearly didn't realize had ever been backed up. He still has no clue. Damn, babe, you're a ninja. He's too checked out to notice. I think part of him knows, but he won't say it. Coward. That one stuck. Coward. Like I hadn't stayed silent for her sake. For hours. Like I hadn't given her space to grieve after the miscarriage. Space that she used to drift. Let me be clear. I wasn't trying to win her back. This wasn't about salvaging the marriage. This was chess. And she just moved her queen too early. The next step was subtle. I dropped hints around her friends. Not accusations, questions. One glass of wine and a dinner with her friend Melissa, and I asked, has Laura seemed off lately? Like she's carrying something? Melissa gave me a look. You mean besides all the gym selfies? I forced a chuckle. Yeah, that. I don't know. I guess I just feel like I don't know who she is anymore. She didn't answer, but the seed was planted. Melissa was a talker. Within 24 hours, Laura's tight little social circle would be asking questions she couldn't answer without either lying or confessing. She started texting Trent less after that. I checked the logs. Doubt is the acid that eats betrayal from the inside out. Still, she didn't break. She doubled down. She tried seducing me one night. Lit candles. Wore the black slips she hadn't touched in months. I played along. Kissed her. Let her think maybe, just maybe, the mask still worked. But as she fell asleep afterward, tangled in our sheets, I was already texting my lawyer. Prenup was airtight. Infidelity clause. I just needed proof admissible enough to trigger it. And oh, I had proof. Just not the kind she expected. See, I hadn't just followed her that night. I'd planted a small mic under the passenger seat of her car earlier that week. It was nothing fancy. Jason helped me build it. He's 10 and smarter than most adults I know. He thought it was a school project on sound frequencies. What captured in that car? Let's just say even her lawyer would vomit trying to argue around it. The moans. The way she laughed. How she said my name. Not in passion. In pity. I didn't listen to the whole thing. Just enough to know what kind of war this was. And that I wasn't going to play fair. She started waking up before me again. At first, I thought it was guilt. But guilt has a smell, sour, unstable. What I caught in the air, as she tiptoed around the kitchen, wasn't guilt. It was fear that made me smile into my pillow. Laura had become jumpy. Subtle things gave her away. She started locking her phone screen every time I entered a room, even though we both knew I had the passcode from years ago. She changed her gym bag, sleeker, newer, no longer the one I used to carry for her after her knee surgery. Even her posture changed. Shoulders tense, like someone expecting a sniper in every window. Funny thing is, I hadn't done anything directly. Not yet. Just psychological erosion. Let her anxiety chew holes in her fantasy. I let her suspect everything and confirm nothing. It was working. She cut back her hours at the gym. Claimed she was overtraining. But I checked the app. She still booked late-night sessions with Trent. They just didn't appear under her account anymore. She'd started using a second profile. Sienna_7. Real subtle. I traced the email to a burner Gmail she created 3 weeks after our reboot. My wife, once too lazy to update our Netflix password, was now setting up fake accounts to screw her trainer behind my back. I admired the effort, but I also saw an opening. If Trent was the virus, I needed a Trojan horse. Something she wouldn't suspect until it was already inside the gates. So I used Jason. Not directly. God, no. But through his school. I signed up for a charity 5K the gym was sponsoring. The one where Elevation would be front and center, with banners and fitness booths, and Trent playing Mr. Role Model in front of suburban housewives and potential clients. I submitted Jason's name for the school's sponsorship program. The gym wouldn't dare turn down a local kid for optics. They comped our entries and threw in a couple t-shirts. Laura saw the emails a few days later. You signed us up for the Elevation 5K? She asked, careful with her tone. Jason wanted to do something with you. I said, keeping my voice even. I figured this was your world now. Her eyes flickered. She couldn't say no without looking like the bad guy. So she smiled. That's really thoughtful. Yeah, real thoughtful. The morning of the race, she wore her game face. Bright smile. High ponytail. Tight black leggings I hadn't seen since last Valentine's Day. Coincidentally, the last time we had sex without lies between us. Jason ran ahead, his little legs pumping in his neon shoes. Laura and I trailed a light jog. She kept glancing at the crowd, trying not to look for Trent, but I knew she was tracking him like a scent. And then she saw him, stationed near the halfway marker, handing out branded water bottles and fake smiles. He caught her eye and flinched. I nearly laughed. Guess he didn't expect her to show up with her husband and kid in tow. Trent wasn't the kind of guy who dealt in consequences. He was a mirror, reflecting whatever the women around him needed to see. But I saw the panic in his eyes. I wasn't some abstract husband anymore. I was real, present, and I was watching. Laura barely spoke the rest of the day. That night, I logged into the admin portal of Elevation's event site. She didn't realize I had access. I'd used Jason's school sponsorship credentials to gain back-end control over donations and event tags. There was a hidden donors list. Trent Hartley, $10,000 under the name Hartley Performance, LLC. Note, for recovery support of Sienna_7. Sienna_7. Her burner profile. Her gym identity. Her hidden life. That donation wasn't a tax write-off. It was hush money. He was paying to keep her sweet, keep her quiet, keep her close. I downloaded the list, took screenshots, and sent it from an anonymous Proton mail to Trent's business partner, Elevation's head of operations, and one particularly gossipy fitness influencer with a large local following. I didn't include her name, but I didn't need to. The clues were there. Enough to ignite rumors, investigations, whispers in locker rooms. 2 days later, Laura's mood shifted again. She came home furious, blamed the gym for toxicity, and said she was considering canceling her membership. I said nothing, just nodded. She poured herself a glass of wine and disappeared upstairs. And that's when I took the final step of phase 2. I walked into our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked her dead in the eyes. I know about Trent. Silence. Her hand froze around the stem of the glass. Eyes widened, but not with surprise. With relief. She exhaled, long and slow. I was going to tell you, she whispered. No, you weren't, I said. But I'm not here to scream. I'm not even mad. That rattled her. She expected rage. Maybe tears. Definitely an accusation. Not calm. Not the calm of a man who's already decided what comes next. I just want you to know, I continued, that I forgive you. She blinked. You do. I smiled. Of course. But what I didn't say, the thing that would come later, was this. Forgiveness is the perfect camouflage. It hides the trap just long enough to make them step into it willingly. And when they fall, you don't lift a finger. You just watch. It was 3 days after I told her I forgave her when I noticed the first real crack. Not her story. Not her lies. In her. I found her in the kitchen at 2:16 a.m., barefoot in the dark, scrolling through her phone with the screen turned low. She didn't hear me come down the stairs. I just stood there for a moment, watching. Her thumb hovered over Trent's name in her messages, then swiped up, hesitated, and tapped delete conversation. She stood there a beat longer, like she just buried something. Then she quietly opened the fridge and drank orange juice straight from the carton. That was how I knew she was unraveling. Laura never drank anything unfiltered, unmeasured, or unplanned, let alone juice with sugar, especially not straight from the bottle. But the most telling thing? She didn't lock her phone afterward. It was an invitation, a surrender. That's what betrayal does to people when the mirror's held steady. It makes them fold in on themselves, limb by limb. And Laura, perfect, curated, emotionally bulletproof Laura, was starting to fold. By the next morning, she was suddenly all in on us. She made coffee before I got up, packed Jason's lunch with a note inside. She hadn't done that in years, and suggested we take a weekend away, just the two of us. It could be good, she said, brushing crumbs from the counter. To reconnect. Reset again. Another reboot. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so pathetic. She didn't want me back. She wanted safety. She wanted the floor beneath her to stop shifting. I was the security blanket now. The known. The stable. And I was going to weaponize that. Let's do it, I told her. Just us. Somewhere quiet. I'll let her pick the cabin. Some Airbnb nestled in the woods outside Asheville. Private. Secluded. A little too expensive for what it was, but I agreed to it anyway. She needed to feel like she was still calling the shots. She spent the week preparing for it. New clothes, old perfume, the lingerie that had been gathering dust in her drawer. I said nothing, just kissed her on the forehead each night like everything was fine. Like I hadn't sent Elevation's head trainer, Monica, a detailed anonymous tip the day before about Trent violating gym ethics by sleeping with clients. I included timestamp photos, screenshots of messages, even a copy of the burner profile's donor history. Monica was a former cop. No nonsense. Ran Elevation like a military outpost. And she hated mess. By Friday, Trent was suspended pending internal investigation. Not fired yet, but neutered. Laura found out the morning we were supposed to leave for Asheville. She was standing by the front window, phone in hand, when she muttered, "Something happened at the gym." "Oh," I asked, zipping up my overnight bag. "Trent's gone. They're reviewing him for, I don't know, improper conduct." Monica's being vague. She turned to face me, eyes unreadable. "Do you think this has anything to do with—" I raised a brow. "With what?" She didn't finish the sentence. Because she knew the answer. Because I let her believe it. She rode quiet the entire drive. No music. No scrolling. Just the sound of tires on pavement and her thoughts getting louder. At one point she asked, "Are you really okay?" "I'm fine," I said, eyes on the road. "No," she said. "I mean with us." I let the question hang in the air. That's what guilt hates most, silence. "Let's just focus on the weekend," I finally said. "We deserve that, right?" She nodded, blinking fast like she was holding something back. The cabin was nice. Remote. Pine-scented. Overpriced. She tried to play the role the first night. Wine. Candles. Even rubbed my shoulders like she used to when we first met. But her hands were cold, and her touch lacked conviction. She went to bed early, said she was tired. I stayed up, watching the fire burn down at coals, and wrote everything down in a notebook. The texts. The lies. The timeline. I wasn't writing for court. I was writing for clarity. For control. Because revenge isn't about punishment. It's about direction. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I pulled out the envelope I'd hidden in the lining of my bag. Inside was a contract, a single sheet, neatly typed. Divorce proposal. Clean. Uncontested. Zero alimony. Custody defaulted to me. All legal. All quiet. I placed it on her nightstand with a pen and walked outside to make a call. My lawyer picked up on the third ring. "Everything in place?" he asked. I watched steam curl from my coffee in the cold mountain air. Almost. Because this wasn't just about leaving. It was about leaving her with nothing she could rebuild on. Not her image. Not her gym. Not her second life. She found the contract before I'd even finished my coffee. I heard the shower cut off, then the soft thump of feet crossing the cabin's hardwood floor, followed by a sound I hadn't heard from her in years. Not crying. Not rage. Just silence. Absolute, stunned silence. That was how I knew it had landed. She came out in a robe, hair dripping, contract in hand, held between two fingers like it might catch fire. "What is this?" I looked up from the porch. "A gift." She blinked, uncomprehending. "You're divorcing me? I'm offering you the chance to walk away clean. No lawyers. No scandal. No questions." She laughed. A brittle, high-pitched sound that cracked halfway through. "You think I'm just going to sign this?" "You should." I sipped my coffee. "You'll never get a cleaner exit." Her robe slipped off one shoulder as she stared at me, mouth slightly open. I could see the calculations behind her eyes. What this would cost her, what she could salvage, how much of her image she could still preserve. The math wasn't adding up. She tried her next move. "You said you forgave me." "I did," I said, setting the mug down. "That doesn't mean I want you." That stunned her more than the paperwork. People like Laura, they don't prepare for rejection. They prepare for confrontation, sure. For tears, for begging, for men unraveling at their feet. But not this. Not indifference. She sat on the bed for a long time, robe cinched tight, contract clutched in her lap like a death notice. When she finally spoke again, her voice was low. "Why now?" I could have given her 100 reasons. The text messages. The burner account. The smug look Trent gave me once at the gym, like I was a joke only he understood. But the real reason? Because I wanted her to feel the way she made me feel. Replaceable. "I've known for a while," I said instead. "But you weren't ready to feel the consequences yet. And you think this is the consequence?" She spat, suddenly finding her voice again. "You think this is punishment? You think I'm going to crumble because you want out?" I stood, walked back inside, and leaned in close. "No," I whispered. "That was just a first hit." Then I handed her my phone. Open screen. A paused video. Surveillance footage. Her, Trent, in the back office of Elevation. Hands. Lips. Moans. All time-stamped. All clear. She paled. "I've already sent copies to Monica," I said. "And to the wives of 2 other clients he's been sleeping with." "Oh. And to the gym's parent company's legal department." "You think Trent was just suspended?" "He's done." She swallowed hard, mouth opening like she might scream, but nothing came out. "I also forwarded a breakdown of all your shared spending over the last year. Flights, hotel bills, new accounts. To the IRS, I added casual. Your recovery coaching payments look a lot like income laundering. You're bluffing. You're projecting." And then I pulled the final lever. "You remember the college fund? Jason's." She flinched. "Gone now. But not because you spent it." I pulled up a new screen, one that showed the entire fund restored and then some. "Jason hacked your accounts. Cleaned them out. Invested it in index funds under a custodial trust. Can't touch it until he's 18. She blinked. "He what?" I nodded slowly. "Our son is smarter than both of us. He's the reason I didn't throw your things into the street when I found out. He asked me to wait. He wanted to fix it. But, oh, and the burner account? Sienna_7? Jason cracked the email link to it. Found the messages, the receipts, the photos, even the ones you deleted." Her legs gave out, and she sat back on the bed, stunned. That was when I felt it. The shift. The moment when she realized she was the one losing everything now. Her gym, her reputation, her escape plan, all burned down from the inside out. I walked to the window and opened it, letting the mountain air pour in. "This is demolition, Laura," I said. "I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to make you cry. I'm here to make sure there's nothing left of what you try to build with someone else." "You're a monster," she whispered. I nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just what gets made when someone like you builds their future on someone else's back." She didn't speak again for a long time. Just sat there, eyes wide, breath shallow, holding that contract like a lifeline that had suddenly turned into a noose. And I packed my bag, stepped outside, called Jason. "How'd she take it?" he asked, a little too calm for a 10-year-old. Like someone waking up in a burning house. He chuckled. "Told you." "Yeah," I said, staring out at the trees. "You really did." He paused. "So what now?" "Now." I didn't hear from her for 2 days. After I walked out of that cabin, I left her there, alone, surrounded by the echoes of what she thought she had control over. No calls, no texts. "No, you misunderstood, or we can work through this." She knew it was over. What she didn't know, what she still hadn't grasped, was that I wasn't finished. Because there's always fallout, and Laura wasn't the only one with something to lose. Trent was the first to break. It started with a phone call to my office line. Unlisted. He must have dug it up from some client paperwork Laura left lying around. When I answered, he didn't even say hello. "You're a piece of shit, you know that." His voice was taut, shaky around the edges. That fake alpha tone stripped raw by real consequences. "You'll have to narrow that down," I said calmly. "I've lost everything," he spat. "Clients, endorsements, board review. My lawyer says if your little hacker son tampered with my financials, that's a federal crime." "Then by all means," I said, "call the feds. See if they care more about that than the NDA violations, the client misconduct, or the gym's liability now that your private videos are circulating on burner forums." Silence. "You leaked those," he whispered, realization sinking in. "No," I said. "You created those. I just reminded you who the camera belongs to." Because here's the thing, Trent thought he was a player. But players forget something critical. You can't run the table when the house owns the deck. I hung up on him mid-sentence. Let him feel that silence too. Laura, meanwhile, had crawled back to her sister's place. I only knew because Melissa, the same friend I dropped breadcrumbs to weeks earlier, messaged me. "She's unraveling. I thought you want to know. Not saying she didn't earn it, but it's bad." I didn't reply, but I appreciated the intel. Melissa had always wanted to play savior. Now, she could have her moment. Still, part of me wanted to see Laura. Not to reconcile, God, no, but to look at her, now that everything was stripped bare. What does a person look like when they finally run out of lies? So I waited until Monday. I knew she'd try to see Jason. It was inevitable. He was the one thing she could pretend she cared about. The last piece of her image worth salvaging. And right on cue, she showed up at his school during pickup. She didn't see me waiting in the lot. But Jason did. He walked out the doors with his backpack slung low, his face unreadable. She stepped forward, arms open, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, Jason, please, I just want to talk." He stopped, tilted his head, then turned to me. I gave him the nod. Jason reached into his backpack, pulled out a sealed envelope, and handed it to her without a word. She froze. "What is this?" she asked. My response, Jason said. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no scene. Just a 10-year-old boy looking his mother in the eyes with the calm of someone who had already buried the version of her he used to love. She opened the envelope after he walked away. Inside was a single page, a handwritten note in Jason's neat, robotic cursive. "I don't want to see you until you're someone who deserves to be seen." That was all. But the effect? Nuclear. She stumbled back, hands shaking, like the words had slapped her harder than anything I could have done. She looked around for me, spotted me across the lot. I saw her mouth move. Maybe she said please, maybe why, but I turned my back before I could read it. Let her sit with that too. That night, Jason sat across from me at the kitchen table, working on a Lego build that was starting to resemble a medieval catapult. I finally broke the silence. "Are you okay?" He nodded. I thought I'd feel sadder. "You don't." He shrugged. "I feel free." That word caught in my throat. Free. Because he wasn't wrong. I'd spent so long trying to protect him from the cracks that I didn't realize he was already building something stronger from the rubble. And still, there was one more piece left on the board. Laura's job. I hadn't touched it. Yet. She worked for a wellness brand, one of those faux spiritual lifestyle companies that posted daily affirmations next to sponsored supplements. Balance, intent, renewal. BIR for short. Fitting acronym. They marketed authenticity, empathy, transparency, and Laura was their face. Literally, her image was on the packaging for their stress relief line. So I sent one last package to BR's brand manager. A thumb drive. Anonymous. No message. No return address. Just footage. Screenshots. Text logs. The real Laura. It wasn't revenge. It was housekeeping. By the following Friday, I heard she'd been mutually separated from her position, which is PR speak for she became a liability. She reached out again the next week. This time, an email. Subject, please. Message. I understand now. Everything. I don't expect forgiveness. But I miss him. I miss both of you. I'm sorry. I left it unread. The subject line said it all. Because please is a funny word. It only works if the person saying it still has something to bargain with. She didn't. A month passed. Laura went quiet. No more calls. No more emails. Not even the drive-by sightings she probably hoped I'd be around for. When you cut someone's strings, it's strange how fast they stop dancing. The house got quieter too, but not empty. Jason and I settled into a rhythm. He took the silence better than I did, if I'm honest. He was always building something, constructing order out of chaos. Lego cities. Puzzle boxes. Once I found him soldering wires to an old webcam. Said it was a motion detection prototype. What are you trying to catch? I asked him one night. He didn't look up. Not trying to catch, he said. Trying to prevent. And that stuck with me. There's a difference between vengeance and vigilance. I'd spent weeks burning the old life down. But now the fires were out, and all I had left was ash. Thing is, ashes don't lie. They show you what stood too long on hollow foundations. That's where I was, picking through rubble. It was during that cleanup phase that I found something. An old external hard drive tucked into the back of the bedroom closet, behind a box of her winter clothes I'd never care enough to go through. The label on the drive just said, Backup 2020. Curious. That was the year we lost the pregnancy. The year Laura stopped looking at me when we made love. The year she found herself by losing everyone around her. I plugged it into my laptop. Photos. Hundreds of them. Us. Jason. Birthdays. Road trips. Then folders marked journal with Word files dated from late 2019 through mid-2021. I clicked the first one, and there she was. Her voice, unfiltered. Raw. He doesn't touch me the way he used to. I think he's scared. Or maybe I'm scared. Either way, we're just roommates with shared grief. I scrolled. Entry after entry. Some are rambling. Others read like confessions. But one line froze me. There's a trainer at the gym. He saw me when I couldn't even see myself. I haven't acted on it. Yet. Date. February 14th. Valentine's Day. She wrote about the guilt. The desire. How she'd sat in her car, crying after their first kiss in the staff bathroom. How she'd wanted to stop. How it made her feel alive again. Then nothing for 2 weeks. Then, I spent the night. I told Alex I was at a friend's. When I got home, he was still awake. He made me tea. I don't deserve him. I couldn't tell if I was reading a confession or a eulogy for our marriage. It didn't make me angry, not like before. It made me tired, like I'd finally seen the autopsy report for a body I'd already buried. She had wanted to stop. She had felt guilt. But wanting and doing are two different currencies. And the thing about guilt is that it doesn't undo damage. It just makes you hope the person you hurt will give you the relief you should have given yourself. I closed the drive. Didn't delete it. Didn't need to. Let it rot there like a sealed tombstone. Her final attempt at honesty. Far too late. That weekend, Jason and I drove to the coast. Nothing fancy. Just sand, sun, and the sound of waves replacing the hum of a house that still smelled faintly of her perfume. We walked the beach. Ate shrimp from paper baskets. Jason asked if we were moving. Why? I asked. Because you always say places hold echoes. I don't think this house is done echoing. He wasn't wrong. Kids see things, the real shape of pain, the hidden logic in adult mistakes. So I made a decision. We listed the house. I didn't tell Laura. Didn't need to. It wasn't hers anymore. Not legally, not emotionally, not even in spirit. She'd forfeited that when she handed the keys to someone who didn't know what a home was supposed to mean. A week later, while packing, I found an old photo album, one she'd made before Jason was born, back when things still felt like they had forward momentum. She'd captioned every picture in her messy handwriting. This is where we laughed. This is when we first talked about names. This is the view we said we'd grow old to. I didn't throw it away. Some ghosts are meant to linger. They remind you of who you were, what you survived. I packed it in Jason's memory box. Let him decide what to keep and what to forget. As for me, I started drawing blueprints. Not metaphorical ones, actual blueprints. I've been toying with the idea of converting an old storage space near the marina into a small workshop. Nothing big, just something mine. I needed something to build. Because destruction's satisfying, sure. But creation? That's where the real power is. The night before we left the house for good, I stood in the living room and stared at the empty nail holes on the wall. There used to be a picture there, Laura holding Jason in one arm, her other hand curled into mine, all of us smiling like the moment could last. Now it was just drywall and dust. Ghosts of anchors where frames used to hang. Funny how a house feels bigger once you strip it of the lies. Jason was asleep on the couch, curled under an old throw blanket that still smelled like campfires and detergent. His tablet was balanced on his chest, a pause video of some engineering build he'd been studying. There were notebooks open beside him, sketches, diagrams, notes he'd written to himself. He was rebuilding too, in his own quiet way. I walked through each room that night one last time. Our bedroom, his, the hallway where we'd marked his height every year in Sharpie until Laura said it made the house look cheap. The kitchen drawer where I once kept a bottle of scotch for the days I felt like a ghost. I took nothing except what mattered. Jason's drawings, a few books, the blueprints for the workshop, and the signed divorce papers. She'd sent them back last week. No note, no fight, just a manila envelope dropped into the mailbox with her signature scrawled across the bottom like an afterthought. I thought it would bring closure. It didn't. Closure's a myth. What it did bring was space. Space to stop reacting, to stop planning her downfall, to stop looking for new ways to salt her earth. I didn't need to. She was doing that all on her own. I heard through Melissa, because of course Melissa kept me in the loop, that Laura moved in with a cousin 2 towns over. She was working part-time at a yoga studio. Her face had been scrubbed from BR's website. Trent had relocated, allegedly to Arizona, to rebuild his career. There were whispers about his conduct, the kind that follow you like a shadow you can't outrun. Jason asked once if he'd ever see her again. I told him the truth. Maybe, but you get to decide if you want that. Not her. He nodded and went back to building his prototype. The workshop opened last Tuesday. Still smells like sawdust and new beginnings. I called it Second Wind. A little cliche, sure, but it felt right. It's not just a space for me. It's for others like me. Men who've been gutted quietly, betrayed behind smiles. People who don't get casseroles and sympathy when their worlds fall apart. Just silence and the expectation to man up. We build things there. Fix broken tools. Repurpose old furniture. Sometimes we just sit and talk over cheap coffee in long silences. No therapy talk. No pity. Just presence. There's healing in that. Jason comes by after school sometimes. He's working on something big now. Something involving microcontrollers and AI tracking. He won't tell me what it is yet. Just says, it's not for her. It's for us. I believe him. A few nights ago, we sat on the back deck of our new place. A small 2-bedroom above the marina. Smells like salt and wood and freedom. Jason asked me, do you still love her? I didn't lie. I don't know if I love her, or if I just miss who I thought she was. He nodded, like that made perfect sense. Then he looked at me, dead serious. She picked someone else, but you stayed standing. And that hit harder than any of her betrayals ever did. Because he saw me, not as the man who got cheated on, not as the dad who nearly lost everything, but as the one who stayed standing. That's what this story is. Not a tragedy, not a revenge tale, a resurrection. Because you don't walk out of betrayal the same man who walked in. You either harden or you heal. You either get petty or you get better. I chose better, not because I'm noble, but because I want my son to know what strength really looks like. Not fists, not fury, but a man who could have destroyed everything and instead built something no one saw coming.